dismiss and ridicule so-called conspiracy theorists, because it seems that humans have a genetic inability to say the word conspiracy without following it with theory. And just say it's all a nonsense, it's not really happening. And that gives you a cover story and time to build your control system more and more powerfully and in more and more of the fine detail of people's lives. But now we've reached another psychological point where they're basically saying, yes, I know a lot more people can see it now, but it doesn't matter, because we're all powerful and we can do what we like, and we're going to show you that we can do what we like, because we're going to put this on public display more and more and more. Now, what are you going to do? Are you going to take us on because we're all powerful and we can do anything we want, or are you going to just be like good little sheep and good little slaves and just do what you're told, keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and hope that will see you okay?
So they've now gone to the pure intimidation. They've taken the velvet glove off, and they go, you bet we gave children syphilis in injections in Guatemala.
Yes,
you bet we're poisoning your vaccine. You bet we run death camps. You bet Halliburton and DynCorp run child kidnapping rings. You bet we're evil. And so they're trying to intimidate us. You bet we're watching you if you hand out any literature. You don't do that in America or the UK. You bet we're listening to your phone calls. You bet we want to reduce your population. Just like all these new TV ads and cartoons and video games where it shows the environmentalists murdering people if they don't accept the carbon tax dictatorship. Have you seen that new video?
I've not, but it makes absolute sense to this whole thing that we're talking about here, because we have reached the point now where, we've got to decide, are we going to be people who are going to stand up, or are we going to be mice and just scuttle away and try to hide in the corner in the skirting board somewhere? Because this is what they're saying to us now. Okay, come on, you can see it. What are you going to do about it? And we need to have the courage and the backbone to say, yeah, we're not having it. We're not having it, because this is the truth. There's a fraction of the number of people in this world who are being manipulated, who are being intimidated, who are being having their lives controlled, who have been turned into a slave race. A fraction of those people on Earth are actually doing it, and the vast majority are having it done to them. I think I see a way out of this, and if we realize that the number advantage the manipulated, abused, and suppressed have over those who are in full awareness doing it, the game is over.
Absolutely, amen to that. The enemy is now out in the open. It has uncloaked itself. Are you going to stand up against this? Because submitting to it means death.
To Alaska, to go north, the rest is on.
We are back live. David Icke with us throughout the full next hour. A host of key topics and issues we're going to break down here, but we're going to continue along the line of humanity, get off your knees. This is bona fide, high-tech, brazen, out-of-control evil. Trillions missing at the Pentagon, trillions stolen by the banks, open world government, open biometrics going in at shopping malls, public schools, face scanners on the street. I mean, it's all here. Everything we warned you about. I want to read from Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago, who, of course, he was taken to the camps, and how we burned in the camps later, burning inside, thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family instead of their families being drug away and killed. Or if during periods of mass arrest, as for example in Leningrad, when they arrested a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, palling and paling with terror at every bang on the downstairs door, at every step on the staircase, but had understood that they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of half a dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, and whatever else was at hand. The organs would very quickly have suffered a shortage of officers in transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst for blood, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We're purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. Alexander I. Solzhenitsyn. David Icke, we are in not just a physical dictatorship, it's a psychological, pharmacological. They're poisoning our food, our water, everything. They are assaulting us now. We have to get angry and get in their face and be bold about this.
Well, it has to be a psychological control system because of the very thing I talked about before the break, Alex, numbers. They cannot control the human population through physical means. They can control that way in small areas in certain situations, but en masse they can't do it. They haven't got the numbers. They haven't got a fraction of the numbers. And so it has to be psychological because, of course, through the mind we decide our behavior and perceptions, and therefore we decide our actions. And so it's a mind game. I've said this all along. It has to be because of the numbers involved here.
And we knew this 8 years ago, but they now admit the airports, the body scanners, the searches, the questions, that's now on the streets of the UK and the US and Europe, and they're literally training us to line up and answer questions everywhere. The schools are being turned into prisons. We're being inducted into slavery.
Yeah, I mean, I've used this analogy many times over the years because I think it's so appropriate to what we're looking at, and that is the laboratory rat who's put in the maze of channels, and some of these channels have electric shock equipment in them, and when the rat goes down those channels, it gets an electric shock. It might go down that channel another time, maybe another couple of times if it's stupid, and it will get an electric shock. After that, you can take the electric shock equipment away. That rat will never go down that channel again because its behavior has been modified. It's been reprogrammed. And that's what all this is about, you see. When you look at this explosion, this staggering explosion of legislation that is dictating to the fine detail of our lives, you can do this, you can't do this, you can't say that, you can't even think that. We're moving into those kind of realms now. And what it is, it's like a fly stuck in a spider's web, and more the fly is wrapping the spider rod is wrapping the fly up in the web so it cannot move. More and more legislation equals less margin for maneuver, for thought, for perception, for uniqueness, for view, for expressing what you really
for think. Underground economy. They're just shutting everything down, farms, ranches. Back in 70 seconds with David Icke, I'm Alex Jones. Okay, I briefly wanted to get back into the subject of ClimateGate, the global carbon taxes on carbon dioxide that we exhale, but meanwhile, the FDA is approving GMO salmon with insect and eel genes in it that gives rise on record to the extinction of regular salmon. That's major university studies. Mutated viruses and bacteria. And this will open the door to thousands of these being approved, and you're not even allowed to know on the labeling if it's a chimera cross-species clone. And meanwhile, the environmentalists aren't worried about that. It's all a population reduction cult. They're now out in the open. Paul Watson's article, Climate Film Depicts Children Assassinated for Not Reducing Carbon Footprint. And I wanted to play a short clip. It starts with a teacher in a British school with what looks like about sixth graders. And they say, what are you going to do for 10-10 to cut your carbon? And some kids say, I'll do this, I'll do that. 3 or 4 say, I'm not going to do anything. She goes, fine, hits a button and murders them. They explode. Then it cuts to a business where they're murdering their employees, then murdering other people. And this is everywhere. They're coming out saying eco-fascism is good. We're going to play that clip while David talks to show people the video. But go ahead and play the clip now so David can comment on it. Here's a quick clip of their heads being blown off.
And there's not. Philip and Tracy. That's fine, that's absolutely fine. Your own choice. Okay, class, thank you so much for today, and I will see you all tomorrow. Oh, just before you go, I just need to press this little button here. Now, everybody, please remember
blood and guts splatters over the other children in their little white-pressed uniforms. And so the message here is the authority figure, the teacher that kids believe, and this is shown in movie theaters, 2 children, you're going to be killed. I mean, David, this is amazing.
Yes, but there's one side to it also, Alex, that it does also smack of desperation. Because they are becoming more and more extreme for another reason, is that they do have a time scale. You know, there is a human awakening going on. You know, I've been to 51 countries in the last 20 years talking about this and researching it, and there is a global awakening going on. I mean, I went to speak in the Czech Republic about 2 weeks ago. I'd never been in the country before. I didn't arrive till about 3 days before. There was no mainstream media coverage, as there never is, because of course they want to keep that quiet. And because of the way the venue was set up, I actually didn't see the audience, or out front as they say, until I walked through the door onto the stage, and I stopped in mid-stride. I was shocked at how many people had come, not only for someone who was in the country for the first time after 3 days, but the fact that it was actually a simultaneously translated talk. Everyone had earphones on, so they could understand what I was saying. So this is happening, and it is gathering pace very, very quickly. And so they are pushing this on also with these more and more extreme, extraordinary things like you've just described, because they are trying to push this forward as fast as they can, because they do have a time scale, and that time scale is the more it's delayed. We've had these conversations before, Alex, over the years. The more we can delay this and slow it down, the less chance it's got of prevailing, because of the awakening that's going on.
I agree with you. Long segment coming up. This was a short break, but there's so many videos, so many cartoons now where they show humans as bad. I mean, scores of video games where it shows, you know, you're a robotic mega worm that kills women and children, and it's a good thing. They're also trying to breed a group of psychopathic children that think of killing fellow humans as an attribute.
Yeah, and the thing is, how are you ever going to express the full magnitude of who we are if you think you're a useless piece of dirt, that you're just like the equivalent of a virus? I mean, how are we going to do that? It's attempting to give us a self-hatred perception of self, which would, of course, be desperate for who we really are.
Stay there. Let's finish up with that central point straight ahead. We're live, ladies and gentlemen, 8 minutes into hour number 3. It is Tuesday, the 5th day of October, 2010. The iconic David Icke is our guest. We're going to talk about a host of other key issues here in just a moment. But finishing up, if you just joined us, David was getting into the fact that, and if you go back to Edward Bernays 80 years ago, who advised the Department of War and the Department of Defense, and he's the reason you eat bacon with eggs. He's the reason there's a music room. You've got to have that piano in the house to be classy. They wrote up the feminist movement to break up the family, to get women working so they could double tax and break up families, even if women wanted to stay home and raise the children. They brag about this, and they said the number one goal is to make you feel inadequate, to make you feel worthless, so they can then sell you on their, quote, new ideas. And what David was saying is mirrored by the article at prisonplanet.com, Climate Cult Indoctrinating Our Kids with Depraved Death Wish. And the second article Watson wrote over the weekend on this, Climate Cult Indoctrinating Our Kids with Depraved Death Wish. And it deals with, they're teaching them, you're worthless, you're bad, humans are evil. So that we're already desensitized with violence and death on television and simulated murders. So when we see the real thing, a lot of people don't care. Or watch some old lady hit by a car, bleed to death for 2 hours in the street, or a cop hit by a car. You see these reports all the time. People not rendering aid, not just disliking themselves, but hating everyone else. They're destroying our connectivity to each other. And it's so wicked, they don't want us to know how special we are. The mind that gave you Shakespeare and Beethoven and Socrates and mathematics and Max Planck 110 years ago now, literally envisioning in his mind the atomic theory and atomic weapons and atomic energy. A species that's brought us space travel. We're supposed to love the dolphins, love the elephants, but then we're trash, we're scum, we're worthless. We don't have a right to have children.